What if the strangest alien and UFO sightings ever caught on camera are all pieces of the same story? From towering figures to extraterrestrial beings seen near restricted areas. These chilling encounters have got people asking concerning questions.
¿Es real?
But one shocking sighting in Brazil may reveal a truth far more disturbing than anyone imagined. On the 20th of January 2024, a group of friends was walking a trail at Papago Park in Phoenix, Arizona, when they noticed something standing on top of the red rock formations that stopped them cold. One of them pointed his camera up and zoomed in. It was 9 feet tall and thin, with a small head and limbs that seemed stretched far beyond normal proportions. It just stood there completely still, like it was watching the whole park below it. When the clip was shared on Instagram, nobody could explain what it was, and if you have any idea, write it down in the comments section. Silent Watcher. A resident in Tucson, Arizona, set up a camera after noticing something disturbing near the side of his house 3 nights in a row. What the footage caught was unlike anything he expected. Pressed against the outer concrete wall, partially hidden, was a creature peering slowly around the edge. Pale, wrinkled skin, one enormous dark eye, long, bony fingers gripping the wall. It wasn't panicking. He watched calmly, as it belonged there, and then reported it to local authorities, who found nothing. Some viewers called it extraterrestrial. Others had no category for it at all. Hilltop visitors. A tourist pointed a camera toward a grassy hillside in Serra da Canastra, Brazil, and what he caught was hard to explain ever since. 2 dark, slim figures were walking along the ridge upright, long-limbed, with oddly proportioned bodies that moved a little too smoothly for the terrain. Their heads appeared larger than normal. No one else was around. No vehicles, no gear, nothing. They just walked the hilltop like they knew exactly where they were going, and where they came from remains the real question. Night field visitor.
Yeah, there it is. Whoa. There it is.
A man living just outside Pulaski, Tennessee, grabbed his night vision camera after his dogs wouldn't stop barking toward the backfield 2 nights in a row. He stepped outside to check and started recording. Through the green glow of the lens, something was crouching low at the far end of the field near the tree line. A small, pale shape, partially hidden by tall grass, with a thin, dark outline behind it that didn't look like any animal he recognized. It wasn't running. It was just standing there, then suddenly hid behind the grass. He ran, thinking it might be an alien looking over his house. Forest visitor. A hiker walking through the bare winter woods of Shawnee National Forest, Illinois, stopped dead in his tracks when he spotted something between the trees. At first, it looked like a tall, thin person standing still, but after a while, his jaw dropped. The figure had a massive round head, sunken dark eyes, and an impossibly long pale gray body with limbs that stretched way too far for any human. It moved slowly, almost like it had no idea he was watching. Later, he shared the clip on TikTok, and one of the commenters suggested that it was an alien. The leaked corridor. When this clip first surfaced from a research facility in Dugway Proving Ground, Utah, nobody could agree on what they were looking at. The footage was dark and shaky, filmed in a narrow corridor lit from above. 2 shadowy figures moved through the hallway. One was clearly a person in a full hazmat suit, bulky and slow, but the other figure walking beside it was something else entirely. Thin, small-headed, with limbs that moved differently from any human. It looked like an alien. Some viewers called it AI-generated, while others were sure that it was really an alien. The backyard figure. A man was camping alone in the taiga forest in North America when he encountered this creature. Standing in front of him was a pale, thin figure. It had an oversized, rounded head, a slender body, and limbs that looked far too long for its body. It just stood there, completely still, staring in his direction. He froze and kept the camera rolling. The figure never flinched, just kept watching the surroundings. Some viewers online claimed it was an extraterrestrial being, while others dismissed it as a costume. Crawling creature. A farmer was grazing his sheep in a field near Odessa, Texas, when he saw a mysterious flying disc crash into the ground. Keeping a safe distance, he started recording. Moments later, a strange figure crawled out of the object. It had dark gray skin, a bald, round head and large black eyes that looked like those of an alien. The creature seemed weak and could barely move. The farmer quickly called the authorities. Soon, officials arrived, took the figure away to an unknown location, and warned him not to speak about what he had seen. Mysterious tall figures.
Keep your phone steady, man.
Drivers heading home along the rural stretch outside Gary, Indiana, that December evening had no idea what they were about to see. One car slowed down, then another, then a few more pulled over. They just quietly grabbed their phones and started recording. Because standing out in that open field were three aliens, tall, dark, razor thin, with smooth, featureless heads and arms that hung way too low. Each one was standing in its own spot, spread across the field like they had placed themselves there on purpose. After seeing them for a while, people began to whisper about aliens, and to avoid any trouble, they drove home.
Closing their faces, man. That's not a statue.
Alien abduction. A hunter out near the tree line in Bend, Oregon, froze when he spotted it through the bare branches. A massive dark disc hung low over the open field, wide and flat-bottomed, with small figures standing underneath it in the dry grass. He stayed low and kept filming through the shrubs, hands shaking. The craft made no sound he could describe. Then something moved closer to his side of the field. He turned and ran straight into the tree line.
Go.
The camera catching nothing but dark trunks rushing past. Later, his camera was found at the same spot, but he went missing that day. Fresno visitor. A man was standing outside his house late one night in Fresno, California, pointing his phone at a broken streetlight when something moved near the chain-link fence across the dirt path. He zoomed in and froze. A figure was standing right there under the orange glow. Impossibly tall and thin, with a small rounded head, long dark limbs, and a body so narrow it barely looked real. It moved slowly along the fence, unbothered, like it had no idea anyone was watching.
Seen this?
Forest stranger. A group of soldiers was searching the dense woods of Kisatchie National Forest, Louisiana, late at night after one of their own had gone missing during a routine patrol. One of them was filming through his night vision camera when the lens caught something moving in the thick bushes ahead. Standing between the trees was a pale, thin figure, smooth-headed, long-limbed, with no clothing and no features that matched anything familiar. It moved slowly through the undergrowth, unbothered by the torchlight nearby. The soldiers held their positions. Within seconds, the figure disappeared in the thick forest and was never seen again. Mysterious visitors. On the 16th of September, a farmer named Dale Hutchins from Deaf Smith County, Texas, stepped outside late at night after his cattle started making noise near the barn. He grabbed his camera, thinking it was a coyote, but what he found near the fence line was something he had no words for. Two tall, pale aliens were moving slowly alongside his barn, lit up by the floodlight. Their bodies were thin and slightly hunched, with long arms and smooth, rounded heads that caught the light in a way that made them look almost silver. Dale uploaded the footage the very next morning, claiming that aliens visited his farm last night, but the viewers brushed it off as a hoax. Peculiar figure. On the 4th of March, 2023, a man was driving past the dry fields in Kingman, Arizona, when he noticed military vehicles parked on a dirt road and something walking through the golden grass that made him slam the brakes. 4 armed soldiers in full combat gear were escorting an unsettling figure across the field. The figure was taller than all of them. Its entire body was silver metallic, while its large, dark oval eyes scanned the field calmly as it walked. People who saw the clip online immediately said the soldiers weren't arresting it. They were walking it back to its UFO. Glass Jared figures. This footage was leaked by an anonymous source connected to a military logistics unit at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, and the moment it spread online, people understood why it was meant to stay hidden. 2 enormous glass containment units sat on flatbed military trucks in the dead of night, and sealed inside each one was a tall alien, preserved in thick, glowing yellow liquid. Their dark, thin bodies were clearly visible through the glass, long-limbed, completely still. When the source took this footage to the authorities, They called it a hoax and shut the conversation down immediately. Deep Woods Find. October 4th, 2003. A man hiking through the dense woods somewhere outside Asheville, North Carolina, heard something heavy hit the ground not far from where he was standing. He followed the sound and found something that stopped him cold. A large disc-shaped craft sat wedged between the trees, tilted to one side, its dark hull scratched and dull. Two figures stood beside it, gray, slender, heads rounded, just standing there among the fallen branches like they were deciding what to do next. He filmed for 15 seconds, then he ran and never went back. Hillside Visitor. A local was walking his lands outside Boone, North Carolina, when he spotted something sitting on the far end of the hill and just froze. It was a massive dark disc, wide and flat, resting right there on the grass like it had been placed down. The mountains stretched behind it in the distance. He pulled out his phone and started recording, his hand visibly unsteady. Then, without any warning, it launched straight up into the sky at a speed his camera could barely follow. He shared the clip on social media and also informed the authorities, but they asked him to stay silent about it. Mysterious figure.
¿Real?
A UFO enthusiast filming from outside the restricted perimeter near Rachel, Nevada, managed to capture something the government clearly wasn't expecting anyone to see. Military personnel in full gear were escorting a large enclosed transport container across the compound, but one figure standing among them looked completely out of place, shorter than the others, no helmet, moving with a strange, stiff gait that didn't match anyone else in the video. When the clip surfaced online, viewers were sure that it was an alien. Bizarre forest figure. A trail camera set up deep inside Monongahela National Forest, West Virginia, triggered one night and caught something nobody was prepared for. The footage showed a tall, pale figure moving through the trees, hunched slightly forward, long limbs swinging wide, fingers spread open at its sides. The head was enormous and rounded, sitting on a neck far too long for its frame. It walked with a stride that looked completely wrong for anything human. A forest ranger reviewing the footage the next morning settled on one word: alien. Strange aircraft. A man driving along a rural back road outside Kalispell, Montana, pulled over when he spotted something massive sitting in the snow-covered field beside the tree line. A large, dark disc rested on the ground, propped up on what looked like landing legs, its wide, flat hull hovering just above the frost. Then he noticed a small, blurry figure crossing the field toward it, moving steadily, unhurried. Within seconds, the figure disappeared beneath the craft. The legs retracted, the disc lifted silently off the ground, ascended into the sky, vanished, and left him wondering what it actually was. Unidentified object. On the 6th of May, 2021, residents of a rural village in Uttar Pradesh, India, gathered around a mysterious object that had reportedly fallen from the sky. Smoke was rising from its dome-shaped surface, and the metallic object appeared completely sealed, with no visible doors or openings. Lying beside it was a strange grey figure that looked eerily human, but had features many compared to an alien. The figure remained completely motionless, as villagers watched from a distance. One witness recorded the scene and later shared the footage on Instagram, hoping viewers could explain what it was. Instead, many dismissed the clip as AI-generated. The aerial field. Back in 1996, a man out for an early morning walk near Isno, Zimbabwe, stopped when he noticed something sitting in the dry, open grassland ahead. A wide, dome-shaped silver craft rested flat against the ground, reflecting the morning light off its smooth hull. Standing beside it were two dark, slender figures, thin limbs, heads too large for their bodies, like they were waiting for something. The figures started moving toward him. He was scared, yet he kept filming from a distance, his hand shaking, because no one would believe him without a video. Later, he shared the clip on Instagram, claiming aliens landed on the ground, but viewers were not convinced. Miami Mall encounter. On New Year's Day in 2024, dozens of police units flooded the parking lot outside Bayside Marketplace in Miami, Florida. Witnesses reported seeing tall, dark, cloaked figures moving through the crowd before the chaos broke out. The aerial footage shows over 100 officers responding, a response that felt far too large for a simple brawl. What people spotted that night stood well above 8 feet, moving with a slow, deliberate stride that didn't match anything human. The interior footage was never released, and if you have any idea about the incident, write it down in the comments section. Forest horror. A man filming alone in the woods outside Asheville, North Carolina, late at night, caught something standing motionless between the trees. It was pale, thin, and upright, its oversized head slightly turned toward the camera, as if it had already noticed him. For a few seconds, it just stood there, watching. Then it slowly lowered itself into the tall grass and disappeared. No sound, no movement after that. Whatever it was, it had been standing there long before, so he decided never to go in the woods at night again. Rooftop creatures. In Houston, Texas, a man was passing by a secret facility when he was left stunned to see this. 2 figures were standing on the rooftop, completely exposed against the gray sky. Gray-skinned, slender, oversized heads, long, thin limbs, just standing there like they owned the place. The person filming kept zooming in, handshaking, not saying a word. Out of curiosity, he shared the clip on Instagram where one of the commenters suggested that the figures resembled aliens. What do you think? Alien encounter. A hunter in Hiawassee, Georgia, was sitting quietly in the woods past midnight, waiting for deer when something stepped into his line of sight that had no business being there. He raised his night vision camera and started recording. Moving through the trees was a single pale figure, smooth, rounded head, enormous dark oval eyes, slender neck, slim body. It wasn't rushing. It walked slowly, unbothered, as the dark forest belonged to it. Then it looked straight at him. The hunter didn't move and held his breath. After this night, he quit his hunting profession and never went to the forest again. Alley chase. A street camera in Providence, Rhode Island, picked up something deeply unsettling one night. A man was walking alone down a narrow brick alley when a creature came at him out of nowhere. It was dark and was moving low to the ground with an unnatural crawling speed. It wasn't built like anything familiar. The man bolted. The creature stayed right behind him, covering ground in a way that looked completely wrong for anything living on this planet. It chased him to the end of the alley and vanished. Whatever it was, it moved like an alien. Pavement crawler. Late one night in Stillwater, Oklahoma, a street camera picked up something that left the neighborhood unsettled for weeks. A figure came crawling across the pavement on all fours, slow, low to the ground, moving with a strange rhythm. What made it disturbing was the shape. The limbs were long, the body lean, and the way it moved had nothing animal about it. It looked human but was choosing not to be. The homeowner found it while checking her footage the next morning. After seeing this figure, a chilling thought crept into her mind that it might be a rake, a mythical creature. Field creature. A farmer watering his fields after dark near Guthrie, Oklahoma, nearly dropped his flashlight when he came across something crouching in the tall grass. The creature was pale, hairless, and small, with an oversized smooth head, enormous bulging eyes catching the light, thin arms attached to a thin body. Its mouth hung slightly open. After seeing the farmer, the creature panicked and began circling around him and letting out eerie sounds. Later, the farmer shared this clip on Instagram, claiming it was a cryptid, while the viewers brushed it off as a hoax. Creature hiding behind truck. A man was driving back home after a late-night shift in Flagstaff, Arizona, when his headlights swept across something crouched behind a pickup truck in the driveway. He turned on his camera and started recording. Peeking just above the truck bed was a pale, smooth head, large, rounded at the top, with 2 wide-set dark eyes staring directly toward the camera. It wasn't moving, just watching. The figure stayed low, as if it were hiding from something. By the time the man stepped out to check, the driveway was empty. Whatever had been waiting there was already gone. Street anomaly. A woman walking through a street in Tucson, Arizona, late at night, spotted something crouched beside a graffiti-covered wall and pointed their camera at it. What she filmed was deeply unsettling. The creature was jet black, its body glossy under the streetlight, with a wide, misshapen head and a face that barely resembled anything human. No fur, no features you could place. Just a dark, wet-looking mass with sunken eyes and a mouth slightly open. It didn't run. It didn't react. It just sat there, aware it was being watched, and completely unbothered. Peeking figure. A doorbell camera in Naperville, Illinois, picked up something strange on the night of December 14, 2021. The footage shows what appears to be a pale, round-headed figure with black eyes and a bald head peeking beside the front door. It stayed for several seconds, then retreated. When the homeowner reviewed this footage, he was left shocked and convinced that it was something not from this world. Vanishing figure. After a break-in at a residence in San Marcos, Texas, a security guard pulled up the CCTV footage, hoping to identify the intruder. What he found instead was something he couldn't explain. Standing near the parked truck in the driveway was a tall, pale, stick-thin figure. No bulk, no clothing, just a ghostly white shape walking upright in the dark. Then, without a warning, it faded into the darkness. The guard showed the footage to his superior, who identified the figure as an extraterrestrial being. Alienoid. A man was taking a nighttime walk in Cody, Wyoming, when he was shocked to see a strange creature. It was hiding behind a tree trunk. It had a pale face, black sunken eyes, and messy hair, which made it look like an alien. He watched it for a moment, and then it moved back behind the tree, as if it knew it was being filmed. He kept recording but was too scared to go closer because he feared for his life. He later shared the clip with the authorities, but before they arrived, the figure had disappeared. Vanishing visitor. One Sunday in 2023, a man was exploring an abandoned building in Bandung, Indonesia, when he saw a strange figure. It was standing near a wall corner and staring at him, as if it was waiting for him. The figure had a thin body, an oval-shaped head, and sunken eyes. Its body looked human, but its head looked like an alien's. When the man moved closer to get a clearer video, the figure suddenly ran back and disappeared, leaving him convinced that he had seen an alien. Cave aliens. A man was hiking alone in the Appalachian Mountains when he came across a cave. As he moved closer, he was shocked to see two strange creatures inside. They were crouching and had thin bodies, almond-shaped heads, and glowing eyes that shone in the darkness. The sight instantly reminded him of aliens he had seen in movies. Convinced that they were not human, he stayed quiet and slowly backed away. Without making any noise or disturbing them, he left the area as quickly and carefully as he could. UAP arrival. A man going through his late grandfather's old hard drive made a discovery that left him speechless. His grandfather had been a government scientist based near Elizabethtown, Kentucky. The footage is old and washed out, but what it shows is impossible to ignore. A large disc-shaped craft hovers just above a dry, open field, its wide, flat body casting a shadow across the ground. Two slim figures stand beneath it, walking toward the hovering object. Then military tanks roll in, and soldiers spread across the grass. One of the figures walked calmly toward them, and the object flew and disappeared in the sky. Terrified alien. A man had heard for years that the old Whitmore house on the edge of Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, was haunted. One night he decided to go in alone and find out for himself. He moved through the dark rooms with just his phone light, filming as he went. Then, in a back corner of the house, his light caught something crouched low against the wall. He moved closer. The creature had a pale, smooth head, deep dark eyes, and long, bony fingers raised right in front of its face, staring straight at him. Its thin arms were crossed over a narrow gray body. It looked nothing like a ghost. It looked exactly like an alien. Fallen UFO. A hiker trekking through the high-altitude rocky plateau near Potosí, Bolivia, stopped dead in his tracks when he came across something that made no sense. Resting on its side across the rugged hillside was a massive disc-shaped craft. Silver, smooth, and enormous. The hull had visible paneling across it, with faint red lights still glowing near the underside. Around it stood 3 or 4 slender gray figures, moving slowly along the hull like they were inspecting the damage. The person recording stayed low, barely breathing. Nobody reported hearing anything crash the night before. The Bolivian government never confirmed any extraterrestrial visit. Alien being transported. A man sitting outside a shop on a quiet street in Salvador, Brazil, pulled out his phone when he noticed something strange on the back of a passing white pickup truck. Standing upright in the truck bed was a figure unlike anything he had ever seen. It was tall, slender, and greenish-gray, with a large, rounded head, thin limbs, and no clothing. It stood still as the truck rolled slowly down the street, like it had been placed there and told not to move. When the clip spread online, viewers were convinced it was an alien being transported in broad daylight. Rescued alien.
We've got it.
On the 8th of July 1947, something fell out of the sky over the dry flatlands of Corona, New Mexico, and the military arrived before anyone else could get close. Soldiers had surrounded a large disc-shaped craft that had hit the ground hard, and lying flat in the dirt beside it was a pale, thin body, unnaturally long, with limbs too narrow and a head far too large to belong to any human. It was an alien, and it was still alive. The soldiers carefully loaded it onto a stretcher and transferred it to a secret facility where experiments on it began the same day.
I can't get it clear.
Beach intruder. 2 friends were relaxing on a beach in Wilmington, North Carolina, late one night. The camera one of them had propped nearby was still recording when something appeared behind them in the dark. A tall, thin figure moved fast beside them. One of them caught it from the corner of his eye and scrambled out of his chair. Both ran without looking back. When they watched the footage later, what was moving behind them stopped them cold. Nobody on that beach could explain what it was. Feeding alien. A man was spotted late at night, somewhere off the back roads of Dugway, Utah, doing something that nobody could quite explain. Dressed in dark clothing, he stood in darkness holding out a chunk of raw meat, and right beside him was a small gray figure with massive black eyes, pale yellowish skin, and long bony fingers reaching out to take it. The creature leaned in close, almost inspecting the offering before accepting it. What was most unsettling wasn't the creature, it was how calm the man was. Like this wasn't the first time he'd done it. The secret visit.
Is that real?
This footage was filmed at Area 51 in Lincoln County, Nevada. It showed something that answers every question people have been asking for decades. Donald Trump and Elon Musk were walking across the airstrip, surrounded by military personnel and Secret Service, and right there between them was a gray figure. Its enormous smooth skull, deep-set dark eyes and long thin neck were impossible to miss. It walked calmly alongside the most powerful men on the planet, like this visit had been arranged in advance. The person who filmed it from inside a military aircraft went missing the very same evening it was posted. The President's Escort. This video surfaced on TikTok just weeks ago, posted by an anonymous account. It showed a man walking through a secret facility in Roswell, New Mexico, with a towering figure with a dark gray body, an oval head, and wide black eyes. The creature moved calmly, cradling what appeared to be a smaller version of itself in its arms. The man beside it walked with ease, no hesitation, no alarm, as though this was scheduled. The clip spread fast, racking up millions of views before anyone could make sense of it. When this video reached the official authorities, they brushed it off as a hoax. Escorted alien. This footage didn't come from a witness stumbling onto something by accident. It was leaked. Filmed at what appeared to be a military base in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio, the clip showed something that the government was not planning to make public. Fully armed soldiers in combat gear were escorting an alien across an open tarmac, dressed in a torn orange jumpsuit like a prisoner. Its head was dark and smooth with no visible ears. Its neck is impossibly thin. Its dark, clawed hands swinging loosely as it walked. What made people lose their minds wasn't just the aliens. It was how calmly the soldiers walked beside it. Like this was completely routine for them. Unexpected guest. A man staying at a beachfront hotel in Mar-a-Lago, Palm Beach, Florida, stepped onto his balcony that afternoon just to enjoy the view and ended up recording something he could not explain. Down below, a large group was moving along the seafront walkway. Security personnel, military officers, and suited officials all walking together in a tight formation. At first, it looked like a routine political visit, but then the camera caught the guest walking right at the front of the group, tall, gray-skinned, with a smooth, elongated head, sunken dark eyes, and long fingers that almost brushed its knees. It was an alien, walking in broad daylight, as it belonged to them. Open discussion. A tourist visiting the hills outside Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, pointed her camera at the ridge when she noticed something strange at the very top. Against the open sky stood a tall, thin figure that remained completely still. It was standing right on the edge of the ridge, looking out over everything below. As she kept filming, another figure was seen climbing over the mountain. The people watching were shocked because the figures looked far too large to be human. The longer they watched, the more they believed they might be extraterrestrial beings. But I would like to know what you think, so write your opinion in the comments section. January 20th, 1996 started like any other Saturday in Varginha, a city in the state of Minas Gerais, Brazil. Then, before dawn, residents reported seeing something strange gliding low over the city. A dark, oval-shaped object moving slowly with smoke trailing behind it, as if something was badly wrong. Multiple witnesses watched it from their windows and rooftops. Within hours, the Brazilian military was rolling through the streets. Locals filmed what they could. Heavy green military trucks moving fast through roads. Soldiers rushing on foot through fields with equipment in hand. And then the footage appeared that shook everything. A large, white, torpedo-shaped object lying on its side in an open field, surrounded by soldiers who appeared to be examining it up close. The Brazilian army never officially explained what that object was, but the craft wasn't the only thing that came down that day. Something else was out there that had crawled into the tall grass near a wall in the neighborhood of Jardim André. 3 young women, Liliane Fatima da Silva, Valquiria Aparecida da Silva, and Katia Andrade Xavier, walking home, were the first to find it. What they described changed this city forever. Some people claimed that it was a UFO, and the figure spotted by the girls was an alien, but the officials denied the claims. This grainy footage from Recife, Pernambuco, captures something that a local cameraman filmed from a rooftop in the mid-90s. A dark disc-shaped object drifts steadily across the sky before banking slightly and disappearing behind the skyline. The object holds a flat, saucer-like profile the entire time. After the Varginha incident, researchers began documenting a sharp rise in similar sightings across Brazil. Locals who saw this footage said the object started calling it a UFO sighting. A nurse working at a restricted medical facility in Fortaleza, Brazil, secretly filmed what you're about to see. The footage cost her her job. She was fired the same week it became public. On the examination table lay a strange creature, pale and hairless, with a large domed head, a long, thin neck, and small, half-closed, dark eyes. Medical wires ran across its chest, while a doctor in uniform calmly attended to it. Skeptics online argued that the scene looked less like a historic first encounter and more like a routine checkup, as if, after 1996, the Brazilian government had never lost contact and the aliens kept coming back to Earth for treatment. Brazil wasn't the only South American country dealing with this. Just 2 years before Varginha, in April of 1994, Chilean military personnel stationed near Lago Colbún in the Mole region filmed something that their own commanders couldn't explain. A dark, disc-shaped object hung over the mountains. Soldiers were scrambled. They investigated it formally and acknowledged that what their personnel witnessed could not be identified. But when this video was shared on Instagram, one of the viewers suggested that it was a UFO. People were eating at an open-air restaurant in Fortaleza, Ceará, when the sky turned that strange flat pink it gets before a heavy storm rolls in. Someone at a table pulled out their phone and pointed it upward at the sky. And there it was. A small, dark disc hung completely still against the washed-out clouds, solid and defined, with a faint dome sitting on top. Lights were blinking around the flying saucer and creating a scene of UFO. Confused, he shared the video on TikTok, where the viewers dismissed it as an AI-generated video. a man was hiking through the dense forest trails near Três Corações, Minas Gerais, Brazil, when he heard a heavy rumble coming from above the tree line. He pointed his phone at the gray sky and caught something that stopped him cold. A dark, wide, disc-shaped object was flying low through the clouds, flanked on both sides by two military fighter jets flying in tight formation with it. They were not chasing it, they were keeping pace with it, almost like an escort. He posted the clip online that same evening. Within 48 hours, his account was deleted, and nobody who knew him personally has heard from him since. People who followed the Varginha incident immediately made the connection that the Brazilian military had escorted recovered craft before, and some believed they were still doing it. On the 10th of March, 2023, a man pointed his camera at the sky to film the thin crescent moon, but instead, his lens caught something else. A strange object was hanging in one place above the city. There was no clear shape, no solid body, only a cluster of bright orange lights. Then, without warning, one of the lights fired a beam straight into the sky, sharp and fast, like a fighter jet. But fighter jets don't hover silently in one spot. Curious, the man posted the video on Instagram. In the comments, one viewer wrote, "It might be a flying saucer, scanning the city and searching for the safest place to land." A Brazilian pilot was cruising above the cloud layer somewhere over Brasilia, Brazil, 10 years ago, when he grabbed his phone and started filming the view from the cockpit. Then something dark shot across the frame from left to right, passing in front of the aircraft at a speed that made the pilot jerk back in his seat. It was small, dark, and solid-looking. He radioed it in immediately. Air traffic control had nothing on their radar. Whatever passed in front of that plane, it was not supposed to be there. A man standing on a street in Curitiba, Paraná, pointed his phone at the sky to capture the clear sky when he captured this strange object. A massive oval cloud sat completely still above the hillside, smooth and dense on top with a sharp, flat underside that caught the light in a way normal clouds never do. The camera tilts and tracks it, and the shape holds. Nothing about it shifts or breaks apart the way weather formations do. People who study UAP behavior have long noted that certain craft generate a moisture layer around themselves as cover. Witnesses in Curitiba described this object staying locked in position for nearly 20 minutes before vanishing entirely, and they were convinced that it was a flying saucer hiding behind the clouds. Alright, pause. We haven't even gotten to the part that broke the internet, and that's coming up next. Subscribe now so you catch every second of it. A plane spotter was filming routine military aircraft movements outside Campo de Marte Air Base in Sao Paulo, when something behind the taxiing US Air Force jet pulled his attention away from it completely. A dark, perfectly disc-shaped object was gliding low and slow behind the aircraft. It stayed low, angled slightly, then drifted out of frame. When the footage spread online, Brazilian aerospace authorities were pressed for answers. What they eventually said was unusual. The object had been part of a classified aerial observation program operating over restricted airspace that day.
Oh, what the Hang on.
A driver was stuck in slow highway traffic on I-10 near Beaumont, Texas, when something above the overpass caught his eye. He took out his phone and started recording. In the cloudy sky, a small, dark object was slowly hovering in one place. He couldn't tell if it was a drone or a person using some kind of flying suit. After hanging there for a short time, the object suddenly moved away at high speed and disappeared. No one knows what it really was. Only you can decide. A man filming the sky over Kingman, Arizona, had his phone out for barely 9 seconds. That was enough. A jet-black triangle drifted through the cloud cover above him. 3 razor-sharp edges, completely flat on the bottom, with a tight cluster of white and blue lights burning along one side. It moved without any sound. No engine noise, no rotor wash, nothing. Just this enormous dark shape cutting slowly through the gray clouds as if it belonged there. Researchers who track these sightings call it the TR-3B, a classified craft the Pentagon has never admitted exists.
Look!
A woman in downtown Los Angeles, California, stepped out onto her rooftop on a clear October evening to watch the sunset fade over the skyline. The Ritz-Carlton Tower was lit up below her. Stars were barely out. That's when she noticed it, a dark, boomerang-shaped object moving silently above the buildings, carrying no navigation lights, making no sound whatsoever. She kept the camera on it for over a minute, as it crossed the entire downtown grid and drifted south toward the hills. Too wide and too steady for any drone she had ever seen. She uploaded the footage on TikTok, and comments filled up fast, saying it was a UFO.
It wouldn't be a bin bag. It was there 2 days ago.
A couple spending the afternoon at their villa in Seminyak, Bali, looked up and noticed something that didn't belong. One of them grabbed the phone while the other just stood there staring. High above the tree line, a small, perfectly round black object hung in the midday sky, not at the height a drone typically operates. They filmed it for nearly 17 seconds, and the object held its exact position the whole time. When they posted the footage, people immediately started tagging it as an orb class, UAP, the same category of object reported near restricted airspace across Indonesia that same year.
It looks like a bin bag, doesn't it?
A man stepped onto his balcony in Sydney, New South Wales, and saw something moving low across the twilight sky. At first, it looked like a bright white flash glowing and traveling at a pace that made him reach for the phone. Then it settled into a clean white orb, small against the deep blues. Aircraft lights don't behave that way, as this did. At one point, it stopped moving, but then, without warning, it moved at an incredible speed. He was sure that this was a UFO as he heard rumors about similar sightings in the town a week ago. Most people on that flight were either asleep or staring at their phones. One passenger was looking out the window as the plane descended toward Las Vegas, Nevada, and pressed their phone against the glass. Outside, a cluster of glowing orbs hung in the dark sky at the same altitude as the aircraft. 3 distinct lights, bright and evenly spaced, moved in a loose formation that had nothing to do with the traffic patterns below. The passenger sat with the phone still pressed against the glass, not sure whether they were any kind of flying object or aviation obstruction lights. A group of residents in a small hillside community in Chiang Rai, Thailand, stepped outside on the morning of March 14th and pointed at the forest on the slope behind their homes. Deep inside the tree line, a bright blue-white light was pulsing, not flickering the way fire does, but blinking in a pattern like something had settled into the jungle and was running on its own power. The light shifted position slightly between pulses, moving a few feet left and then right before going dark altogether. Nobody went up that hill to check. The footage spread across Thai social media within hours, and the comment sections filled up with one word repeated over and over: UFO.
Whoa, did you see that just shoot across?
A man was recording the beach in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, one evening while a storm was gathering over the Atlantic. He had his phone pointed at 2 women near the waterline. The sky was heavy and gray. Then something shot across it. A bright white object, flat and elongated, tore through the storm clouds horizontally and was gone in under a second. He only noticed it when he reviewed the footage later. People who watched the clip online said it was traveling close to 2,000 miles per hour. It left no trail, made no sound, and followed a path too precise and too straight to explain.
Insane.
A hiker was recording the peak of Popocatépetl volcano in Puebla, Mexico, from a safe distance when he noticed something strange hovering just above the summit. A dark, triangular object sat completely still in the pale gray sky, flat and wide at the base with a distinct pointed shape. Then a sharp beam of bright blue-white light fired straight down from its underside, hitting the mountain top directly. The hiker kept filming, not fully understanding what he was looking at. The object eventually climbed silently upward and disappeared. He was sure that this was a UFO because this mountain had been a hotspot for UFO sightings for years. A forest explorer was walking through the Serra da Canastra woods in Minas Gerais, Brazil, at night, torch in hand, when his camera caught something crouched low among the trees. He moved closer. The light revealed a figure with pale pinkish-brown skin, a large rounded head, and 2 bulging black eyes. It was later captured by the authorities and taken to a secret laboratory for experimentation, where it was identified as an alien. Its DNA matched that of the creature, reportedly captured during the Varginha incident, and the man who spotted it passed away and went missing after a few days and was never seen again. One rainy morning, a pilot was sitting in his cockpit at Manchester Airport in the United Kingdom when he pointed his phone at the overcast sky above the runway. Right there, in the middle of all that cloud and rain, a tiny dark object sat completely still in the air. It was small, round and solid looking, and while every commercial aircraft around it was moving, taxiing, turning, preparing for departure, this thing just hung there without drifting. The pilot shared this footage with his department, who dismissed it as a drone. A tourist was walking down a busy downtown street one night in Houston, Texas, when he noticed something odd above the buildings. 3 faint lights were arranged in a perfect triangular formation, drifting slowly and silently across the dark sky. He zoomed in, and the shape became clearer. 3 distinct white points holding their position relative to each other, moving together as one single object. Cars were passing below, people were walking, and the city was loud, but whatever was up there made no sound at all. He shared the clip on YouTube, claiming that it was a UAP, but the viewers dismissed it as a hoax. A helicopter was flying over a frozen alpine lake in the Swiss Alps, and the pilot was filming the icy water and snow-covered mountains around it, when something caught his eye on the footage. A small white disc was sitting right on the surface of the lake. The object rose straight up from the water in one clean vertical motion. It was dark and cylindrical with a bright white top, pulling a thin trail of mist behind it as it climbed. Within seconds, it was gone into the sky above the mountains. Whether it was a real one or a hoax, only you can decide. A man was driving up the road along Pikes Peak in Colorado when his friend in the passenger seat pointed the phone out the window toward the valley below. The view stretched for miles across the forested mountain range under a clear blue sky. Then a bright white object appeared in the distance, hovering between 2 mountain ridges. It was round and flat, a classic saucer shape. It stayed there motionless, as if it were a UFO looking for the right place to settle down. A man in Bristol, England, stepped outside late one night and noticed a bright white light hovering low in the sky above the tree line. He grabbed his phone and started recording. At first, it looked like a single glowing orb hanging in the sky. Then he zoomed in. The object was round and wide, with multiple dark patches across its surface. It pulsed gently with light and held its position for nearly 40 seconds. Then it dimmed slowly and disappeared into the dark sky without making a single sound. No aircraft was reported in the area that night, so he became convinced that it might be a UFO. A Ring security camera inside a home in Conroe, Texas, was recording the living room late at night, and suddenly it captured something not from this world. It was a pale, large-headed figure pressing itself against the glass of the front window, peering inside. The head was round and oversized, and the eyes were wide, resembling an alien. It stayed there for several seconds, watching the inside of the house, then pulled back into the dark. The homeowner was asleep. The next morning, he reviewed the footage and could not shake the feeling that he had been watched by an alien. A woman was standing outside in Sedona, Arizona, on a clear afternoon when he noticed something small and white moving through the sky above the clouds. He pulled his phone out and started recording. The object was flat and oval-shaped, glowing white against the blue sky, and it moved at a slow and steady pace that made him stop and stare. He kept following it with his camera, trying to figure out what it was. The longer he watched, the more confused he got. It held the same altitude the entire time, made no sound he could hear, left nothing behind it, and moved in a straight line. He posted the clip on Instagram, asking people what they thought, and one of the commenters suggested that it was a UFO. This footage was reportedly filmed inside Hospital Regional de Varginha, Brazil, shortly after the January 1996 incident. The creature lying on the hospital bed had greenish-brown skin, a wide, flat face, and 2 enormous black eyes that took up most of its head. Its nose was barely there, just 2 small slits, and its mouth was thin and expressionless. It looked nothing like anything born on this earth. Nurses who worked at that hospital later admitted that it was brought under heavy military supervision, but the government kept it secret, and no official confirmation ever came out that it was an alien or something far more sinister. After the Brazilian military swept through the fields outside Varginha. On the morning of January 20th, 1996, witnesses claimed at least one creature was taken alive. This is believed to be what it looked like: a large hairless head, sunken dark eye sockets set wide apart, a flat, almost featureless face with thin, slightly parted lips. It lay completely still, as if barely conscious. Locals who worked near the Humanitas hospital in Varginha later said something was brought in through a back entrance that night, under heavy military guard, and staff were told to stay away from a particular room. Later, it was confirmed that one military guard, Marco Eli Cherizzi, had touched it by mistake and fell seriously ill and could not survive. The three women in Varginha weren't the only ones to encounter something like this up close. This CCTV footage from a residential driveway in Brazil shows something walking across the street at night. It was upright, thin, with a head that was noticeably large compared to the rest of its body. It walks at a calm, steady pace past a parked car and disappears into the darkness at the edge of the frame. People who saw this footage immediately pointed to one thing: the shape matched what those women described in Varginha.
Bobby is free.
What the is that?
While South American militaries were dealing with their encounters, something unusual turned up much closer to home. A woman named Aileen Semjan was filming the sunset near the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, California, when she noticed a dome-shaped object sitting on the surface of the bay. It had a smooth, rounded top, a flat base resting right at the waterline, and a ring of glowing blue lights running around its midsection. It didn't move. It didn't bob with the waves the way any floating object normally would. By the time any official response arrived, the object had already gone. After watching this incident, she became convinced that this might be a UFO. City-sized UFO. Sao Paulo is one of the most densely populated cities on Earth. 20 million people packed beneath the same sky. So, when something the size of a city block appeared above the rooftops in broad daylight, it wasn't going unnoticed. The footage shows a craft so large and so detailed it barely seemed real. Multiple tiers, structured paneling across the entire surface, hovering without sound above the urban sprawl. Mexico City UFO. Multiple lights appeared over Mexico City in the dead of night, moving in a formation that no conventional aircraft operates in. Filmed on a smartphone from the street, the footage shows them shifting position in sync and completely unexplained. Onlookers on the ground could only stand and watch as the lights rearranged themselves overhead. Mexico City has one of the highest concentrations of UFO sightings in the world. This footage added one more entry to that list. Over Fort Worth.
Are they moving at all?
No, we're sort of in the same spot.
On December 5th, a resident of Fort Worth filmed a string of lights hovering to the east toward downtown. These lights or orbs were not only moving, but were also flickering, but that could be due to the camera. Another thing, this video is looking east towards downtown, and DFW Airport is about 20 miles further east beyond downtown. So these could be lights from airplanes. If you look at how bright the buildings are, it means the camera's exposure was high, which causes lights to appear bigger than they are as it stretches the light.
It looks the same from here.
The only way they would stay in the same spot is if they're flying this way, but then they'd start getting bigger.
Texas 2008. On April 11th, at 7:25, a solid craft was filmed hovering above residential homes in Texas. The footage, time-stamped to the second, shows a dark dome-shaped object hanging in an overcast sky above the rooftops, with no visible means of propulsion. It stayed in place long enough to be filmed clearly from multiple angles. Witnesses were baffled at the time, and the case has never been officially explained. Probing UFO. Whatever this was, it wasn't flying. It was hovering, low beneath the cloud line, moving with an odd, deliberate stillness that nothing with conventional propulsion moves with. The footage shows a dark figure-like object with what appear to be limbs or appendages trailing beneath it, drifting slowly across a gray sky. It looked nothing like a drone, nothing like a bird, and nothing like any aircraft. People who watched the clip couldn't agree on what they were looking at, only that it shouldn't have been up there. UFO in Norway.
Ser du, Katarina?
On February 19th, residents across the Trondanes region of Norway looked up and started filming something unusual hovering in the sky. Multiple people photographed and recorded it before the attention reached the Norwegian Armed Forces. Their spokesperson, Brynjar Stordal, issued a statement confirming it was a military exercise and that the object was a new drone being tested, one designed to operate both in the air and underwater using what they called transmedia technology. So this one got an answer. Newly surfaced footage. This clip is believed to be from around 2014. A man standing alone in a field, pointing his camera upward at something hovering directly above him. The footage is blurry and unfocused, but the object is visible. A dark shape with lights underneath it in the sky above the tree line. There is no confirmed location, no follow-up report, nothing concrete tied to it. That usually means it gets written off as fake or unverified. But then again, most genuine sightings don't come with perfect documentation either. The border UFO. Above the US-Mexico border, in clear blue daylight, someone filmed a perfectly spherical metallic object moving through the sky. The footage is close enough to see sunlight catching its surface as it moved, smooth, controlled, no wings, no exhaust, no sound. Objects like this have appeared in declassified military footage, and the Pentagon has acknowledged they don't know what they are. This one crossed the border in broad daylight, and nobody had an answer for it. Above the refinery, filmed from what appears to be an industrial site in rural Texas, likely an oil refinery judging by the structures in the frame. A long, glowing, cigar-shaped object moved silently across the night sky above the facility. It crossed the horizon at speed, trailing white light, and disappeared into the darkness without a sound. Whoever was filming it tracked it until it was gone. It was there long enough to see clearly, not long enough for anyone to make sense of it. Willoughby's V-shape. A witness in Willoughby, Ohio, filmed a V-shaped object moving slowly through the night sky at what they estimated to be around 800 feet, low enough that the shape and the glow of its lights were clearly visible. It held that low, steady course for a while before it simply shot away at a speed that left the witness standing there in a daze. They described feeling physically strange after the encounter. The footage captures the object before it disappears. Suburban saucer.
Whoa. Is that?
This footage was shot from a moving car. You can see the person scramble to grab their phone, almost dropping it in the process. Because when something like that appears above your street, your hands stop working properly, disc-shaped and clearly outlined, while everything around it was moving. Now here's what I want you to sit with. This was a Tuesday afternoon on a residential road, and that craft was just there. They used to hide. Above the falls. A couple were out filming a waterfall when something appeared in the sky above the ridgeline. There it is, sitting in the grey sky above the mountain, disc-shaped and completely still. What's worth paying attention to is the background. The waterfall is the reference point. It's moving. The mist is moving. There's natural motion across the entire frame except for that object. No official identification has been made, and the footage has not been altered with either. 5,000 years old. Stephen Greer has been in this field for decades. He's testified before Congress, he's built one of the most extensive databases of UAP accounts in the world, and he doesn't rattle easily. So when he sits down on the Resilience show and starts talking about the Booger sphere, it's worth paying attention. The object in question is a sphere discovered in Colombia. And what makes it extraordinary isn't just the shape or the material, it's what's carved into it. Sanskrit script, the same ancient language that originated in South Asia, dating back roughly 5,000 years. Greer's position is that this isn't an anomaly. It's a data point in a much larger pattern of evidence suggesting that whatever has been visiting this planet has been doing so for a very, very long time. They all saw it. This is a compilation of sightings filmed across several separate incidents. In several of these clips, you can see groups of witnesses gathered on terraces and balconies, all pointing upward at the same thing. These aren't lone individuals filming something they stumbled across. These are crowds who've come outside because word has spread that something is happening overhead. What a compilation like this does is remove one of the standard dismissals that the witness was confused, or mistaken, or looking for something that wasn't there. Craft vanishes. A woman in Brazil caught this on camera. You can hear her telling the people around her, "It's here, it's real, it's very big." What the footage shows is a large, dark, structured mass partially wrapped in clouds and illuminated from what appears to be an internal light source. This footage has been deleted repeatedly from multiple platforms. What we can say is that the woman filming it believed entirely in what she was seeing. Something came out. This was filmed over Peru, and whoever was holding the camera had the presence of mind to keep it steady, because what happens in this footage is one of the clearest examples of what researchers call probe deployment. The main object is a large, dark, roughly spherical mass with what appears to be an internal red-orange light source. And then a second, noticeably smaller object separates from it and begins moving independently below and to the right. You can see the separation happen. You can see both objects distinctly. There's no ambiguity about what the footage contains. Well made. This is CGI. And it's worth being straight about that, because this channel doesn't pad out a genuine conversation with fabricated material and hope nobody notices. The disc in this footage has the hallmarks of a rendered object. The light wraps around it with the consistency of a three-dimensional model. The geometry of the undercarriage is too clean and symmetrical, and the way it interacts with the background as it passes the wind turbines and rooftops doesn't have the chaotic, unpredictable quality of something genuinely there in physical space. Mystery object. In recent footage taken in China, a bright white object was seen floating high above a mountain range. It stayed almost perfectly still for several minutes before slowly moving out of sight. People online quickly started referring to it as the white spacer. What stood out most was how steady and well-defined it looked, not drifting like a balloon or shaped like a drone. The clip spread fast, leaving many wondering what kind of object could hang in the air like that without a sound. New York's intruder. Someone looked out their apartment window in New York, and what they captured was a classic UFO saucer. It was moving through the clouds like no conventional aircraft does. Then the same object begins to glow. New York is one of the most surveilled cities on the planet, and something just glided through its sky. Big green ring. Late at night above the streets of Tehran, people saw something that made no sense. A perfect ring of green light rotating slowly in the darkness above the buildings. A glowing circular formation flying through the night sky over a city that's been in the world's spotlight for decades. The footage is shaky, but the object is unmistakable. Massive mothership. It started as a small glow above the rooftops, but whoever was filming from the street kept the camera steady as the light grew. Then, its shape was prominent, and it revealed itself fully. The footage ran for over 20 seconds, long enough to rule out confusion. Something massive? It came in low over the city at night, massive and covered in deep red lights that were constantly pulsating. Footage filmed from a rooftop terrace shows the sheer scale of it. A wide, angular object trailing red across the sky and close enough that the city lights below reflected off its underside. San Antonio's visitor. Filmed from a street at night over San Antonio, Texas, the footage shows a single point of light drifting through heavy cloud cover above the rooftops. The person filming tracked it as it moved, the clouds breaking around it just enough to keep it in frame. San Antonio has racked up a growing number of UAP reports, enough that locals have started tagging MUFON in their posts as a matter of habit. This one went straight into that file. Rancher's worst evening.
Is that a bigger craft that's reaching the...
A Brazilian rancher was out working on his property when he started hearing something coming from the woods, a sound he described as something choking while trying to breathe. It shook him badly enough that he went back inside and refused to return, pointing his phone toward the tree line. He could still hear it even when he was inside. He documented the whole thing on Instagram in real time. When the sun went down and he turned his camera toward the mountain range beyond those woods, a lit disc-shaped object was hovering above the exact spot the sounds had been coming from.
What the is that?
West Texas portal.
It's like a spaceship or something.
Someone in West Texas filmed a bright white orb moving through the night sky toward a vertical, circular formation that appeared misty and hazy, almost like an opening in the air. The orb tracked toward it steadily, while the circular shape held its position. Whether it was atmospheric, optical, or something else entirely, nobody watching the footage had a clean explanation for either object, let alone both of them appearing together.
No, guys, come out here!
Over Los Angeles,
That is so weird. That's not a plane.
a metallic structured craft was filmed moving over downtown Los Angeles in broad daylight, caught on camera from what appears to be an elevated position with a wide view of the city below. The object moved slowly and deliberately across a clear sky, its shape distinct enough to rule out anything conventional. Los Angeles is one of the most densely populated cities in the world with restricted airspace. Whatever this was, it had no business being up there.
Take it off, these guys getting out of town.
Silent visitor.
This is crazy.
Filmed from an elevated position overlooking a New Jersey city at night. This footage shows a dark, unusually shaped object crossing the sky above the urban sprawl below. No lights, no sound, no flight path that matched anything conventional. The object held a steady course across the city and kept going. Witnesses who watched it had no explanation for what they were looking at. Just a dark shape moving through the night sky above millions of people who had no idea it was up there. UFO chases glider. On May 29, 2023, a paraglider was in the air above Garden Ridge, Texas, when something appeared near him that had no business being at that altitude. The footage from his body camera shows a dark object moving in his general vicinity, visible against the overcast sky. What unsettled him was that it seemed to track him, shifting position as he moved, staying within range. He kept filming until it finally pulled away. Encounter explained.
Lights.
On September 20th, 2022, residents across North Texas looked up and started filming a chain of lights moving in a long, evenly spaced line across the night sky. The footage spread fast. People had no idea what they were looking at. The answer, it turned out, was SpaceX's Starlink satellites, a batch of them freshly launched, still close enough to Earth to be visible to the naked eye before climbing to their final orbit. It was identified, but for the people standing outside in Ennis that night, for a few minutes, it looked like nothing they'd ever seen.
What the is that?
Fort Knox visitor. For 24 hours straight, a steady, non-blinking white light was reported hovering in the Kentucky airspace, specifically near Fort Knox military base. Multiple people filmed it at different times and from different positions, and it kept appearing in the same general area. A military base, restricted airspace, and something glowing overhead that wasn't moving like anything it should have been. No statement was issued, no explanation was given. The light just kept sitting there. Strange ship. On May 14, 2026, a video filmed somewhere in India spread rapidly online, showing a ring of golden lights hanging beneath a heavy, overcast sky. The formation was almost perfectly circular, dozens of individual lights arranged in a tight, even band, hovering silently above the tree line. Nothing about its shape matched any conventional aircraft. People on the ground filmed it from the street as it held its position in the cloud cover. No official explanation followed. The footage was still circulating days later. Hidden in clouds. But this one is operating differently. This one isn't hovering over your neighbor's garden. This one is using the sky itself as cover. shot from an industrial yard, and whoever filmed this nearly missed it entirely. The whole thing is sitting inside the cloud cover, tucked in like it's been parked there. A long, curved, structured rim. Clean geometry. The person filming clearly can't quite believe what they're seeing. They zoom in, pull back, zoom in again, as if their own eyes are negotiating with their brain. No official explanation has been given for this footage. Luminous saucer. Now I need you to pay attention because this last one is where the whole picture starts to feel a lot darker. A glowing, saucer-shaped form sitting inside the storm. There's a theory, and I'm not saying it's confirmed. Certain crafts use electromagnetic atmospheric conditions, storms, high-voltage environments, that they're not just spotted near lightning, they're drawn to it. This footage hasn't been edited, no effects added, shared exactly as it was captured. Aliens came back. This farmer had cameras set up across his fields because last year the same land produced something else entirely. Crop circles appeared overnight and livestock behaved strangely. Most people who saw that called it a hoax, and the farmer himself wasn't entirely sure what to make of it. So this year, a bright, intensely white orb, low to the ground with a wide halo of blue-white light across the entire horizon. Whether that history is relevant or just coincidence is something nobody has been able to establish cleanly. Starlink, probably? Right, so before anyone loses their head over this one, I think there is an explanation for this. SpaceX launches these satellites in batches on a single rocket, which means when they first reach orbit, they're all traveling together in a tight formation. When the ground below is dark, but the satellites are still catching sunlight at altitude, they reflect that light back down and become clearly visible to the naked eye. If you check a satellite tracker for the time and location of the footage, and it lines up with a scheduled Starlink pass, that's your answer. Unexplained encounter. This was filmed from a moving vehicle on a rural road, and the person filming clearly wasn't expecting this. Just above the tree line, there was a tight cluster of glowing orbs hovering in formation, bright white with a warm orange core, sitting completely still while the vehicle moves underneath them. Commercial aircraft have fixed nav lights and strobes on a strict pattern. These don't follow that pattern at all. Multiple witnesses reported seeing this over the UK, and the accounts are consistent with this footage. Filmed in Brooklyn. This one was filmed on a busy street in Williamsburg directly above the buildings. Barely visible against the light-polluted sky, something is moving. 3 points of faint light, arranged in a triangular formation, traveling together slowly across the sky above the rooftops. The person filming tracks them as they move, and what becomes clear over the course of the footage is that the 3 points are maintaining a fixed geometric relationship with each other. Shocking video. Before you watch this, understand the context, because that is what makes it genuinely unsettling. This footage was allegedly filmed inside a structure in Peru known as the Citadel, the same site where the controversial NHI mummies were discovered. The person who shared it believes it was filmed by tomb robbers with an old Nokia phone. The claim is that when they entered the site, they found more than mummies. According to the account, they found beings that were still alive, including what's described as a mantid entity, and they unalived them all. What you're actually seeing in the footage is a pale, small-framed figure with a large elongated head, large dark eye cavities, a flat nasal structure, and no visible ears. The source and site are both kept hidden. No sonic boom. On the 2nd of October, 2014, someone in Murray, Utah recorded something crossing the sky above their neighborhood. The object produces a series of bright flashes that alone separates it from a meteor, which would leave a continuous luminous trail as it burns through the atmosphere. Footage from this event was analyzed by multiple people in the years following, and no consensus explanation was ever established. Through the rock. Someone flying a drone over the Verdun Gorge in southeastern France in September of 2014 captured something unbelievable. Something small, white, and extremely fast passes across the frame. The French researcher who analyzed this footage did something methodical. They slowed it down progressively, 3 times, 4 times, 6 times normal speed, and zoomed into the object at each stage. You can see it clearly, an elongated, tic-tac shaped object, bright white, moving horizontally across the canyon with no visible means of propulsion. Communicating with aliens. This is night vision CCTV footage and shows a man standing in an outdoor area. He's clearly there deliberately, not passing through. He appears to be waiting for something. Over the course of roughly a minute, a bright orb appears and begins moving around him. The man adjusts his position in response to where it goes. There's a quality to the interaction that reads less like someone watching a strange light and more like someone in communication with it. The man in the footage knew it was going to appear. That might be the most interesting thing of all. Glowing lights. A nighttime clip from Mexico has stirred debate after showing an object with multiple glowing lights arranged in a perfect line underneath. Each light flickered in an even rhythm, giving the impression of an organized machine-like pattern. The witness filming stayed silent throughout, focusing closely as the object hovered low over the horizon. Analysts pointed out that no known aircraft displays such uniform light sequencing without visible structure or noise. For many, the mechanical precision of those flashes makes this sighting hard to dismiss as coincidence or camera error. Unidentified object. A box-shaped UFO was recently seen hovering over Bangkok, Thailand, and it had everyone pointing their phones at the sky. The object looked solid and steady, with clear edges, definitely not the shape or movement of a balloon or drone. Several videos from different parts of the city showed the same thing floating high above, staying perfectly still. The sight quickly sparked new discussions about UFOs. With how often these things are showing up lately, it's hard not to wonder what's really happening up there. Metallic shape. On February 1st, 2021, residents in Paraíba, Brazil, spotted something unusual cutting across the clouds. A long, metallic, cigar-shaped object. It moved in complete silence, keeping a straight, even pace over the city. Witnesses said it didn't behave like a plane or any known aircraft, describing it as smooth and deliberate in its motion. The brief sighting became one of the country's more memorable UFO moments in recent years, mostly because of how calm and controlled the object seemed. Open discussion of the day. We talked about this in another video. Turns out he had more footage. Just to quickly recap, he is a journalist who allegedly got to a UFO crash site in Russia and has been reported missing ever since. This new footage apparently comes from the same device he used to film the other incident. Check it out. The situation is more or less the same, but it was also said in the description of this video that everyone heard a loud noise coming from the ground, after which all electronics stopped working. Now, who leaked this video and where is this missing journalist remains unknown.
Холод. Смотрите, там он. Огромный кусок, как из фильма.